Aisha Cosmos.
So, recapitulation lends the insight of what to stalk yourself about. So, you recapitulate and you get to begin to see, I have this thing, and I did it here, and I did it here, and I did it here, what is that thing? I'm going to stalk myself about that. So, you begin to put yourself in situations that would be undoing that. And maybe not every situation gets the nail right on the head, but you're still navigating, putting yourself in the situations that will unlock you from that tendency. And then with this stalking, you are learning to move your perception point, which Toltecs call the assemblage point. You are able to begin to move it systematically to different positions. Toltecs of the second attention have the capacity to become seers, and so that is when they can actually begin to see reality as the true divine matrix of light consciousness. Toltecs describe this, like the Toltec seers, as an infinite number of threads of light that are self-aware and that are all of the infinite possibilities of unfathomable proportions, and that a human being, when seen as energy, is an energy egg that inside encapsulates a bunch of these light consciousness filaments. And so each one of those light consciousness filaments is a perception. And so what we perceive is dependent on our energy egg. We have a point that is brighter, and that brighter point is what Toltecs call the assemblage point. And so whatever threads are touching that point of light become lit up, and so they like go online, and then they get matched with the exact reciprocal outside of the energy cocoon. And that alignment of the inner filament with the outer filament at the point where the light is, that creates perception. And so stalking creates the capacity to systematically dislodge this point of light, to begin to move it to touch other different threads of light that, as they come online, they align with their counterpart outside and build new perception. And so very tiny movements only shift little perception, maybe even the perception of being sober or being on mushrooms. But a Toltec that is really very good at this stuff and is an avid stalker can really move its assemblage point to large degrees that assemblage all other worlds. And so they say that Earth has, I think, like, I can't remember exactly, but something like 200 levels or 200 Earths. But that this is the only one with the sun and birds and trees that are like this, where life feels like this. I think most of the other ones are almost like desolate plains of consciousness. There are some of them described, and they do seem like very interesting. Yeah, that means that all the different Earths that exist actually are configurations of these energy fibers inside the human being. So the actual planet exists inside the energy filaments inside your energy cocoon. So there's not an actual planet that is outside that you're sitting on. It's like you're this egg energy that has all these filaments inside, and whatever filaments they are lit up with and aligned with the outer, that is what you perceive. If you get really good at moving this assemblage point, you can even take it inside the energy egg to touch energy filaments that you would never usually touch as a regular indoctrinated human being. And so if you get really good at moving it everywhere, then you begin to assemblage whole other earths and all of this other perception. And so all of these things are a feature of the self. They are the energy filaments. When they match up, that is what you perceive. It's really interesting how for Toltec's perception is a mystery, and they acknowledge it as the mystery of perception. And how is it that this thing that is supposed to be outside is actually happening inside? Like regular humans supposedly have their assemblage point behind the shoulder blades, and so the energy cocoon, I guess, is like 1 foot away or something, so behind. And so in the south is lucid dreaming, and so stalking and dreaming are the two arts that shift the assemblage point, even though recapitulating also, because going through the memories moves it back to the place where it was, where each event occurred. So that also allows for ease of movement. But when you're dreaming and you become aware of the dream and you have enough energy to be able to intend your practice in the dream time, then you are able to unfold so many worlds and practices and downloads and stuff that the assemblage point moves super fluidly, because the dream time doesn't have any structural belief structures, so it doesn't have any restrictions. Like stalking is systematic of discipline in behavior, because you have to like, well, and but that is how you keep it there. But then dreaming is a very fluid motion of moving it all over the place. Practice stalking and dreaming allows one to be able to learn to move it fluidly and then keep it anchored at a certain spot whenever you are where you want to be, and not just keep all over flopping, because that's like when in the dream time you first have to develop your dream attention, because otherwise you're dreaming and all of a sudden one scene will come up and you'll forget that you were dreaming, and you'll go right back into just dreaming and not being consciously dreaming. Not becoming distracted, not becoming engrossed in the way that things look and the transitions and all that stuff, is a way to be able to fluidly move. But at the same time, if there's going to be any genuine scientific exploration, you have to be able to also sustain it. It cannot be something that just happens willy-nilly. And so that is, the stalking is the super systematic disciplined, and the dreaming is the wooey and just super fluid. Then in the west you have erasing personal history, and so erasing personal history is like the realm of not doing, and being able to be dissolving all your own belief structures about yourself and allowing for nothing about yourself to be known by anyone, so as to be able to be enveloped in a shroud of mystery. Because every being, their consciousness is super powerful, and so when people know you really well and they think of you, it's almost like a magic mantra that they almost invoke you into that manifestation. And so it's harder to change when many people are like invoking you in their thoughts all the time as a certain definition or a specific parameter. So the Toltec creates nothing about itself to be known, so that it just comes and goes and whatever, and nobody really knows nothing. And that way, people are not thinking about it. And then it is not trapped or in any way hindered by other people's thought projections and thought processes and thought manifestation power. No, so as to be able to just, I guess, in a way, mind your own business. But this is something that is not even unto yourself, where like even you don't even describe yourself to yourself. You don't even assume that you know that you know. No, you allow yourself to be a mystery unto yourself, and to then rest in that shroud of mystery, not ascertain yourself as any one particular thing, not incantation yourself into affirming to people who you are and explaining all your stuff and your strategies or what you believe in and all this stuff. It's just like the whatever need to teach. You will have to share what you have to share, but at the same time, not about you personally. No, not about you. It's like the less people think about you, the more free you are to just co create with the divine and not be hindered in any way by other people's thought processes. Erasing personal history is also to be able to liberate oneself to become more than you ever, because this also could come into believing I am human, believing I have a physical body, because this process of moving the assemblage point, this is like a process that I know Jesus learned and that he was Toltec because of the whole thing of the Shroud of Turin. So this cloth that is supposed to have been like burned with this super light burn at the process of resurrection, the Toltecs and the Mayan calendars explain it. In the Mayan calendar is the sign of the storm, which is a turtle, and it is the paradoxical lightning bolt of transformation and alchemizing lead into divine light. This is through knowledge and experience. And so the assemblage point moving all over the place is that you get to see all these super diverse experiences. So that no longer is a good thing or a bad thing, or up or down. It's more for Toltec, this is a realm of power, and not power in the way that maniac people that are like, oh, power control, colonialism, whatever, not like that. Meaning that these are all forces of creation that bounce off each other, dance with each other. And so it's like the waves of the sea crashing against the rocks, and the freaking hurricane coming and then cleansing the beach, and then later the turtles coming and laying their eggs, and then the moonlight like bathing the whole scene. That is creation. It's this like thing that is beautiful, it's sublime, it is violent, it is intense, it is full of unspeakable power. And these are the forces that make us: the wind, the water, the fire, the earth. And the Toltec teachings anchored in the four directions, as well as the Mayan calendar anchored in the four directions, and the sacred femininity also four directions, sacred masculinity also four directions. And so it is the volatility of fire and the soothing groundedness of the earth and the black soil full of all the microorganisms and all the little bugs. It's like Toltecs always say that everything is far more simple than we even are able to begin to conceive of. And the qualities of the four directions, the qualities of the four elements, the qualities of the four bodies, the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and the different principles and values that are contained within the wisdom of these like primordial forces. And so it's very interesting that in many new age or modern spirituality stuff, it's almost very convoluted. Not that studying the Toltec stuff or the Mayan stuff or whatever wouldn't be complex also, but it is all anchored in simplicity. It's not so many things. No, it's like these four things. This is just like this one, this one, this one, this one, and just do it. No, and so allowing for the reciprocity influence of them on each other. So as you recapitulate, you get more insight, more energy. You're able to stock yourself better, have more energy for the successful stocking of your self identity, on doing more of your own belief structure of yourself, and having more freedom, and then going into the dream time and being all questing for deeper understanding and divine communion with infinity consciousness through that dream platform that is part of our birthright to be able to have as also a place where we exist. And so then that would give you more fluidity and inspiration for your deeper recapitulation, and they feed into each other. So then the more energy you have, the more amazing dreaming, the more you reclaim your power, the more your emotions are healed, the less triggers you have, the more divine your lucid dreaming can be, because lucid dreaming takes on the different like shade of your emotional baggage. So deep recapitulation is usually necessary prior to lucid dreaming in order to allow for the dreaming to be light, no, to not carry with it like the heavy weight of whatever stagnant stuff. And so these four practices lead to the assemblage point being able to move systematically and fluidly. And so in the Toltec structure, you have the first attention, okay, the second attention can be a seer. Nobody that does service of the self and that has a separation anxiety virus can go into the higher levels of Totequity. They can only stay and they make my own world, be my own master, be my independent, separate existence of the rest of existence. But as a Toltec seer that is given to the path of freedom and surrendering to divine will completely and utterly, would ideally or necessarily recapitulate its life 3 times. So, first, it would do a systematic recapitulation by making a list of everyone it's ever known, and then recapitulating event by event everything that ever happened. And so, that usually for a person that can be taken out of society to do just that takes 2 years. And then there's that second recapitulation, which is to do it random as different memories arise. You recapitulate them in the moment. So it's like a aleatory serendipity recapitulation thing, but it's also supposed to be your whole life, but it happens in this serendipity way. In recapitulation, Toltec say that there is a threshold that you cross once you have recapitulated deeply enough, where the memories begin to transcend being memories and actually become reliving the moment. And so I imagine how in Harry Potter the pensive, no, that bowl of liquid where you can put in a memory and then put your face in and go into the memory and be like sitting there and seeing what everybody was saying. Recapitulation is meant to become from a memory exercise into super powerful, like it goes from being a memory exercise into like reliving of each moment, so that when you're about to do something and all of a sudden it's mirroring something that you've done before, you would suddenly relive like all the moments where you've done that, no, and so it would like all the moments that you've done that. And so then all of a sudden you can go totally uncharted territory. And so this is moving into the unknown, and that's also the erasing of the personal history. You're no longer being bound by the old beliefs. And so that is facilitated by this recapitulation. But through the movement of the assemblage point, once you recapitulate your whole life twice as a ideal Toltec thing, then at the time of death, you have the last recapitulation, which is when your life flashes before your eyes. And so your spirit makes it mandatory for every human being to have to recapitulate their life before they die, because that's when everything makes sense. Because now you see what all really was. But that's why Toltecs do it before they die, because then they see before they die, and then they do it twice to see so much that they're just absolutely so acutely aware of all their folly, all of their patterns, all of their downfall, all of their self-destructive tendencies, and reclaim all the power from it and just infuse it with absolute presence and awareness. And so all of this is always anchored with the path of the heart and the divine service, so as to be able to stay balanced in the gratitude and the awe and respect that is navigating these forces as a servant, and also one that with time can come to use these powers, but because of it being a servant. No, so that's why a Toltec can attain so much more power than one that is in the separation world, because the Toltec fuses itself with the ocean and so then commands the waves instead of being in its own little world trying to control everything. And so it is through surrender that the Toltec embodies the fullness of its power. And so at the moment of death, what Jesus did and what the Toltec path dictates, that is a possibility for anyone that so happens to be just at the perfect state to finally accomplish this, which is to, okay, you die, you recapitulate your whole life, and then a Toltec would take their assemblage point and move it through the power of their will, all across their energy egg in one lightning bolt strike, which is the power of the storm in the Mayan calendar. And in that super bold lightning strike of their own fullness of all the filaments of perception, that creates all the filaments lighting up at once. And so then the whole energy filaments that are possible to a human light up all at the same time. So you have like perception of all possibilities all at once. And that is the alchemical process of transmuting all belief systems into undying light and divine love and truth. And so then that allows for that being to transmute their, like the way that our quantum energy has been invested into this description of a physical body that has organs and will decay and die. This is instead all of a sudden being able to transcend all of that, so that this body of flesh becomes a quantum body. And so that is what happened to so many Toltecs through the ages that were able to attain this level of self-knowledge. And that's also what Jesus did, and that is what resurrection is. And that is what explains the Shroud of Turin that has all of his bones and his facial features and everything etched into it. It would be at the moment of the striking of the assemblage point across the energy body that would light up in the lightning bolt, that and would create this intense, because it's the energy of absolute transfiguration. You're taking what dies and transforming it into undying eternity. And so then what a Toltec is gifted from that is freedom. And so then what is supposed to happen is that, having recapitulated your life 3 times, at the moment of death, when you're able to achieve full perception and you reclaim your physical body as a body of light, so that you're not going to leave a grave behind, there will be no body. You are now this person that transcended being biological. No, and so now you're no longer biological. Now you're just quantum. And so that is the nature of the dream time. It's this quantum perception field. But a Toltec that manages to conquer death, no, then all of a sudden when they face Great Spirit, they have this trinity of recapitulation, of these 3 recapitulations that make like a perfect exact replica of all of your life experience. And that can be handed over to Great Spirit to be able to eat, to feed the evolution of awareness of the universe. But then you get to keep your memories and your energy intact and keep going, because usually every person that dies goes to Great Spirit and gets eaten. And then Great Spirit separates the awareness of that life and then puts the energy back into the recycle. But when a Toltec is able to show up with the perfect 3 recapitulations, Great Spirit takes those 3 recapitulations instead of the awareness of the person. And so then the person can move on with its awareness and the memories and the full everything. So that is the jewel of the Toltec path, that possibility that can never be hoped for because it is so unattainable. But that is why the surrender, the depth of devotion, and the just doing the practices, and always be anchoring back into the heart and a sense of deeper communion with the forces that already have dictated everything that I am and that sustain me. And so moving deeper into the Toltec teachings, there is the whole explanation that we are the dream of the dreamer.
Mayan astrology readings deeply connect you with the power of your birth year. Visit ayeshacosmos.com to schedule your personal reading.